Where's the love? Where's the love? It's right here in the heart of the city. I'm Silas Grant, and I got my co-pilot with me.
What's up, bro?
Happy birthday, man.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, bro. Big 44, man.
Big 44.
I'm an old man, bro.
You old man.
Wow.
Wow. Hey, man, they turn 44, these people, man.
Yeah.
Can't believe it for real, but I'm super grateful, man.
Yeah.
Bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I'm
We
blessed.
we talked a little bit offline about it, just the perspective you have based on reflection
Yeah.
of experiences leading up to this point. I just want you to share a little bit about what we talked
man,
about.
I just continue to be just so grateful for my life, where my life has come, you know what I'm saying? Growing up how we grew up, so many people died early, so many people went to jail, picked up habits, whatever the case, man. And even for the people that are sort of around, a lot of them just existing, man, are still struggling, and everything that they're going through, I know that could be me, and in a lot of cases it has been me at some point, you know what I'm saying? Look at my wife, my children, my father home now, just the things that God is really blessed to do, man. So yeah, bro. So what you doing what you doing for your birthday? What you doing? I'm just breathing, man.
Yeah.
Because I know I don't necessarily have to be. So I'm cool, man. I'm cool with that.
That's a good thing, man.
And we doing this, man. You know what I'm saying? We working, so
yeah.
I feel good about that too.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. Now that's good. I really quickly I wanted to shout out Streets is Calling, District Run Collective, Broccoli City, Rock Creek Social. We partnered this weekend on a run, walk, bike event down at Sandlot in Georgetown. Really well attended event. People could pick from those 3 activities. You and I and Booby and a bunch of other folks did the walk, 4-mile walk. There were run groups, bike groups. So just getting folks out and getting active, that was real cool to see.
No, that was beautiful, man.
Yeah.
It was beautiful, I think, too, as and shout out to my man Mars was for the District Running Collective.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. His birthday.
Yeah, Matt.
Was,
Yeah,
Matt.
uh-huh.
Yeah, shout out to Matt, man. His birthday was a couple days before that, so they celebrate. I saw he had a crazy party. Looked like too.
Yeah.
Matt, I ain't get the invite too, bro. I mean, what's up? But nah, the what they do, I think, and what you do with your group, the bikes, Scooty, the whole thing. Just watching that. Seeing all these beautiful people coming together, around fitness, but it's much bigger than that. It's fellowship, it's friendship, it's networking, and I think it's really to not describe it, or to describe it simply as just a walk, run, bike doesn't even capture the fullness of the event, bro. And for everybody out there, what is every fourth
Saturday between now and I believe October, and we're going to do a special Juneteenth one as well. So on the 4th Saturday, we take off at 9 a.m. It is 2715 Pennsylvania Avenue Northwest.
Yeah, Sandlot,
so
Georgetown.
Sandlot is the place where we are. And like
that's
you
across
said,
from the Four Seasons. If
Yeah.
anybody need a marker,
Mhm.
I speaking of me being 44 and feeling old, I remember, bro, when I was a little dude, and we used to always come that way when we went into Georgetown. That used to be a gas station.
Yep, I remember that.
You know what I'm saying? And I was thinking about that. One of the things that since my father's been home a little over a year now, but I would always reference points or locations or points in my life based on when he was home. You know what I'm saying? And like if I was thinking about that Saturday, like dang, I would have been like, yeah, man, I remember my father, we would always come this way and stop at this gas station sometime. It'd be feeling so cool not to have to say that.
Or trying to explain to him that you guys are doing a activity from the gas station.
From the gas station.
Yeah.
On the phone, yeah, Dad, we right here. Remember the gas station right across from the Four Seasons? Oh yeah, I remember that. Now I ain't gotta say that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I can say Pop, Sandlot Joy, and he know what that is. You know what I mean? So anyway, that keep doing that, bro. I look forward to the next ones. I definitely gonna be there.
Yeah.
It's dope.
So today, I think it's fitting that we're talking about that activity because it highlights what DC is and what DC could be, right, for us. And I think this show has been focused, this last iteration of us recording over the last year or so has been focused on really edifying our people, bringing forth excellence, trying to get people to go to the next level, right? And we got a really special guest today with us on the Heart of the City who I believe exudes that excellence and, is a person who much of his story happened here in D.C. And I think for those of us, black people, brown people in this city, to be able to have someone come on that we can draw inspiration from to talk about excellence, I think is a really good thing. We've got an investor, a media executive, so many different hats.
An American businessman.
Yeah, that's
Which
perfect. Yeah, that's perfect.
Was an incredible description.
Yeah,
we can get to that later, but I thought that was the most powerful title that I think I saw. I thought that was poignant, and I want to sort of unpack that later. But of course, I'm sorry, partner.
Yeah, no, that was perfect though. American businessman Paxton Baker.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, brothers. Thank you. My blessing and my joy to be here, Silas and Tony.
We appreciate you.
Yes,
man.
sir.
Thank you for real. This is a big deal for us. We really appreciate you being here, man.
Yeah, feeling is mutual, brother.
Yes, sir.
So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say my introduction to both of you guys is my boy Trey Kelly.
Yep.
So,
Shout out to Trey.
I saw him sit on the couch, and it was funny because when he sent it to me, he said, "Man, just look at it for a minute," and I felt myself compelled. I ended up watching the whole interview, which was a good run of time, but it felt quick.
I
It felt quick, and
yeah.
I dug the way you guys rocked it. And he said, would you like to get down? I was like, yeah, I'll come sit on the couch.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Welcome, man, for sure.
So when did
Yeah.
you first arrive in D.C.?
So my first journey to Washington was way back in '82. I lived in DuPont Circle I moved here February of '82, and then I moved to Philadelphia. I was in between community college in Pittsburgh and moved here. I had a brother that lived here, and then I stayed here until August of '84 when I went to Temple University and enrolled there and ended up studying African American Studies at Temple University. Mm-hmm. So I was that window of time from '82 to '84, and then I moved back in January of '90, and I moved into Chevy Chase on the Maryland side, right across the street from the DC line, and I've been back here ever since then. So 35 years now.
Yeah.
35 years now, and 2 years back in the '80s when we had His Honor, Mayor for Life.
That's right.
That's
Mayor
it.
Barry.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
Yeah, so 2 runs at it, 35 years this time straight, and I don't really have any plans on moving anywhere else now. Yeah, thankful to be here. Very much consider myself a part of this community. Feel comfortable going anywhere around the city, anywhere around the whole of the DMV, and I'm thankful for the love that I get from the city.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. My wife a Temple Owl too, by the way.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so,
And I'll be remiss if I didn't mention our little cousin, her little cousin, but our little cousin Gabriella. She just graduated this year from Temple.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a great inner city school.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a real city experience, North Philly.
For sure, man.
Yeah.
So I was as I did some research, sort of prepare some questions or think about what I wanted to ask, right? You've done so much. One of the things that jumped out to me was you just mentioned about you doing the 2 years at Temple. And I was listening to an interview that you did, and you talked about starting to do, I guess, radio, and then you did like a festival. You started like promoting festivals like out of college that turned into the St. Lucia Festival. Am I correct in that?
Yeah.
All right. So what, like a young kid, right? Basically, how did that evolve? And what gave you, I guess, the gall to say, you know what, I can do this? How did that develop?
My whole life has been a matter of reaching for things that were higher than me. So that was one of the things that was just simply in the mix of it. So I started out doing shows in college. I was on radio. They had a 24-hour jazz station. It's jazz and classical music now. It was called WRTI. And so on that station, this is back now in '84, you get a chance to program your own show.
Okay.
So you do your own research, you do your own programming. And then one of the things I started to do early on was interview jazz musicians. And then I would go out and MC a lot of concerts. Philadelphia is one of the larger markets for jazz musicians who are great musicians who live in the city. but have national reputations or international reputations. Like way back to like Dizzy Gillespie lived in Philadelphia, John Coltrane lived in Philadelphia, Rufus Harley, Byron Lancaster, Monette Sudler. It was like a whole load. Sonny Fortune, a lot of people, Rashid Ali, a lot of people who lived in Philadelphia but who had national reputations and toured. So I got a chance to soak all of that up as a young kid. I was 23, 24 years old when I was living there. So this is in the 80s when hip hop was just starting to emerge. I checked for hip hop, but my love was jazz.
Right.
And so
that developed there or prior to college? Like, did you
I
grow
listened
up
to jazz music? Yeah, I listened to jazz music when I was young. My older brothers and sisters listened to jazz and heavy R&B. So this was like 72, 73. Ramsey Lewis, Earth, Wind & Fire, when they were just getting going. Dionne Warwick, Isley Brothers, Marvin Gaye, a lot of Motown, but jazz music as well. So as a kid, I was getting a taste of both jazz, R&B, and my mother listened to a lot of gospel music and some European classical music as well. So it was an interesting blend of music that was my influences. When I hit Philadelphia, it was jazz. And I got deep, deep, deep into the jazz culture, read all the liner notes, read a lot of books. My major was African American Studies. So it was jazz, root music, African music. I got turned on to Fela Kuti, King Sunny Adi, of course, Bob Marley during that period of time as well. But jazz was the heart of it for me. So it put a deep, deep influence on my life. And I started producing concerts in college and started a student-run jazz series. And that was really the start of my career. I didn't know it was, but it actually started out to be the start of my career. So when I left Philadelphia, I lived in Atlanta for a year, worked on the Atlanta Jazz Festival. There was a brother named Kevin Eubanks, who's a guitar player who ended up on the Tonight Show band for like about 20 years. So he and I were good friends. He turned me on to a sister who's director of cultural affairs for the city of Atlanta, lived there for a year. And then I moved to Miami. And that's where I really kind of started my career. I was working with the actor Philip Michael Thomas the last 2 years at Miami Vice. And that's when I started my own production company. And one of the people who came to one of the concerts told me about Aruba. And so this is now 1989. I went to the Jazz Festival in Aruba, pitched him on my producing it, and kicked him some ideas on how I thought I could do something a little bit more unique than what they were doing. They ended up buying into it, and I got the contract November of '89 when I was born November 25, 1960. So when you said the big 44 is chuckle when you're 63 years. Somebody said the big 44. It's like, okay. Yeah. And from my end now, looking back on my life when I was 44, I almost felt like a kid compared to like, I hit 64 this year.
That's right.
So it's you put a whole lot of different things in perspective, but on the whole career front, so I went down to Aruba, pitched them, and I got the contract November of 1989 to produce the next year festival, which was in June. So that started my international career. Started in Aruba.
Amazing. Next
year I got Amsterdam. Next year after that I got Trinidad Pan Jazz. That same year I met both Clarence Avant and Harry Belafonte in '92.
Two icons.
And that be like a lifelong friendship for me, and both of them were surrogate fathers in my life, and like truly nourished me mentally, taught me a whole lifetime of things from multiple conversations and just allowing me to be in their presence and learn so much from them. So that started my career, and it literally just started to pick up and run after that. So Aruba, Amsterdam, Trinidad, St. Lucia, Trinidad 5 or 6 years, Amsterdam couple years, St. Lucia was 24 years. Wow. And then started my relationship with BET in '91 as well, and started touring acts, went Marcella, Santana, Herbie Hancock, wide array of artists, touring them throughout the Caribbean. And
we talking about
building relationships.
I'm just thinking about, not sorry to cut you off, but I just sometimes is like, when I think about who our sort of core audience has been, right? And I mean, again, you're just talking about you and what you've done, right? You talking about like Carlos Santana and Bradford Monster, like these people, these are legendary people. You know what I'm saying? I don't want people to like miss that. Like you're talking about Harry Belafonte and Mr. Avon. Like these are people that, you know what I mean, that I think people should understand, right? Like how important you're not just You ain't just talking. It's like this is different. You know what I mean? And how does and so my follow up question to that statement is just simply, in finding. I mean, obviously you had a knack for building and producing these shows, right? Mm-hmm. That in turn people say you might need to deal with the guy Paxton, man. You might need to get with him and this and this. But so do you in those moments, and you talking about a kind of a large span of time? But when did you feel like you came into your own? Like, okay, when you realized that, like, now I'm the guy as it relates to the touring and these festivals and these productions. Like, I know you said you started your production company in Miami, but at what point in that period that you just described to us did you say, you know what, this is what I do?
Good question. Real good question. Not really sure that I ever really kind of got to it. Like, so much of it just came natural. So much of it came natural, and relationships are the capacity to build relationships is one of my greatest strengths and one of my greatest blessings. And people often ask me, like, well, how did all these other things kind of come in? It's all been relationships. It literally has all been relationships and a good spirit. And I think sometimes we allow our ego to get in the way of so many different things. It's like we achieve something like, oh, I'm the man now. I've never felt that way. I felt like I'm a witness, I'm a part of something, and I've been blessed and given an opportunity. One of the words I learned as a young man was the word stewardship. And Dr. King talked a lot about that, of being a good steward of the opportunities that you were given. And thankfully for me, that's been probably the bigger part of it, has been, one, being a part of crews, being a part of good teams of people, and then being thankful for the opportunity and positively exploiting those opportunities and not allowing my ego to get in the way of the new things or the next things for me to accomplish. So I'm not sure if I ever really felt that way. Of like, oh, I'm the man. I'm like, no, I'm a part of a crew, and I'm helpful to get things done. And when I need to step out front to accomplish something, I have the confidence and strength to do so. But once again, I'm still a part of something.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
On this program, we like to extract excellence out of our guests, right? And I think about you having a relationship with a Bob Johnson or Harry Belafonte, widely recognizable people, right? And you met them in your younger years when you felt, like you said, like a kid still. When you initially meet those people, or anyone that you feel like can play an important part in your growth or your success, how do you manage that relationship from day one? If you're at a networking event or you're in a board meeting and someone, you catch their eye, right? They're the prominent person, you guys exchange information. Like, at what pace do you go to try to build a relationship?
Well, certainly depends on the person. So I'll give Clarence and Harry as two examples. I met Clarence, I was 30. And it was backstage at the old Cap Center. You maybe remember that. Mm-hmm. You guys old enough to remember?
Yeah. Barely, right?
Been in the Capitol Center. No, for sure.
Okay, so sure. It was backstage at a New Edition tour, and a friend of mine in Atlanta had written a letter introducing me to. This is way back when people still wrote letters, introducing me to Clarence Avant. And when I saw him, I was like, "Oh wow, that's Clarence Avant over there." So I went over, introduced myself to him, told him a guy named Michael Hollis had introduced us, and he knew Michael well. And that kind of was a nice little bridge to get the conversation started. And then I started just asking him kind of questions. And when he was telling me about his career, much like you said, you read up on me, well, I knew who Clarence Avant was. And so when he was talking about the different artists that he managed, Little Willie John, there was another really, he was an Argentinian jazz piano player named Lalo Schifrin. And you actually, both of you know his music because he wrote the theme for Mission Impossible.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Right? But he wrote also all the sound scores to all of Clint Eastwood's movies, all the westerns, spaghetti westerns that Clint Eastwood did. The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. He wrote Dirty Harry. He wrote his modern stuff, the cop stuff in San Francisco as well.
Right.
So he wrote Mannix. I don't know if you remember that TV show, Mannix. So he was a prolific writer, but he started out as a jazz player. So when I started talking about Lalo Schifrin, Clarence so finally he said, He said, little nigga, how you know all this stuff?
Right.
So I said, I read liner notes. So I said, I read books, I read liner notes. So then he was like, okay, so, well, what do you do? And I was like, well, I'm producing a music festival in Aruba, producing a music festival in Amsterdam. It's like, they got niggas in Amsterdam?
Right.
Yeah. So I'm like, yeah, actually they do. So then he was like, tell me what you mean by production. I said, I book the talent, sound like stage, security, run a show. I even work with marketing. I work with the interviews. I work with the record labels to get artists set up in different locations. When we're booking talent for Aruba, we look at the feeder cities. We check the radio sound scans in different cities out of Chicago, out of Philadelphia, out of Dallas, out of New York, out of DC, all the feeder cities that go into San Juan, which then feed into Aruba. And we're aware of what we book. It's a pattern to it. There's a science to booking talent that you want to get for key markets and from a tourism perspective. And so he looked at me, he said, wow, okay. So he had a little confidence in me at that point that even though I looked young, that I knew what I was talking about. Mm-hmm. So he said, do you come out to Los Angeles? And I said, yeah, I come out to Los Angeles. He said, well, next time you come out, see me. Here's my assistant's name. Her name's Tamika. Come out and see me. And I went by his office, got there like 10:30 Monday, Tuesday morning. And I purposely give myself time to be there to really be able to kind of like soak in some knowledge. So Clarence would sit at his desk, put his feet up, both feet on the desk, and he would sit back and rub his stomach and talk on the phone. And this is the old telephones that used to have those long cords that would knot up.
Yeah.
Now I would want him just to unknot the line. He would just be kicked back like this. But I'm sitting there. Maynard Jackson, who was mayor of Atlanta at the time, called. Andy Young called. Hank Aaron called. Lionel Richie called. Babyface and L.A. Jimmy Jam Taylor. And I'm sitting there like mystified and looking at this brother giving everybody advice on the phone. And the one thing that came to me was the desire that, like, I'm looking at that man who's got the same color skin as I do and is prolific.
Yeah. And
I was like, I want to be like that. That's how I want to be.
Yeah.
And so he would say to me, like, when can you come back again? Either the next day or day after. So every trip to Los Angeles after that, I would make time to go by Clarence's office. And if I could spend a day or two just literally listening to him talk and learning, like literally sitting at the feet of a master, that's what I did. And then that next summer, the summer of '92, I was in New York working. I was living in D.C. I was living in Chevy Chase. I would go up to New York during the week and work. And my assistant called me and said, Harry Belafonte just called the office looking for you. So, like, you hold your breath at that point. Like,
sure.
What do you mean? Like, are you real? Yeah. So I called him up. Paxton, Harry Belafonte.
Yeah.
Been checking around. So he told me he had talked to a lot of the agents in the Caribbean. And so, like, William Morris, there was another agent with Triad, ICM, APA, CAA. Mm-hmm. And he said, your name keeps popping up from people. And I've heard some really good things about you. I'm looking to do a festival in Barbados, and wonder if you can come by and talk with me about it. I'm like, yeah, I think I can make time for Harry Belafonte. Right. I think I can. Right. So that was literally the start of a lifelong relationship, and I learned so many different things from him. One of the great passions of my life is I collect memorabilia, and when I went over Harry's house, which was the whole floor of a pretty nice size high-rise in New York, like literally at one point he owned the whole building, and he ended up selling off different units of it, but he kept the whole floor of a building. So you're walking around like this whole massive complex, not really like knowing where it really ended at. But I'm looking on the walls, and there's everybody from Fidel Castro to Eleanor Roosevelt to John Kennedy who wrote letters to him. And then he collected memorabilia, and he went to a lot of auctions as well. So that was one of the passions I learned from him early on was the memorabilia game. And because I went to Temple, I met another brother named Charles Blockson, who was a great collector as well, had one of the largest African-American collections in U.S. history. So I'm now starting to soak in like knowledge from a different place as well. And saw for him how much of a student history Harry was. And his relationship with Dr. King, he brought a lot to the table for the civil rights movement, but part of that for him was all of the stuff he had soaked up himself as a kid from Jamaican culture, black culture. And at that point, it was like, from my end, I was in love with both of them, and both of them were my fathers. Yeah. So I was able to like learn so much and soak up so much talent, so much energy, so much history from two great prolific brothers who, to me, were some of the baddest cats that have ever walked on this planet.
Yeah, ain't no secret about that. No secret. And I'm just thinking about, one of the things I feel like people go into, if it is those relationships where there's somebody like Silas spoke to that's more prominent, and I've always advised people, like, just kind of be yourself. Not trying to go in with these like, I need to meet this particular person for this particular reason, because I would imagine that those kind of people, they're used to that, right? They're used to people always trying to like get proximity to them for their own benefit. So probably it's like I just listening to you say how it's just like coming and letting your work speak for itself, and
but you hit upon something there, like being yourself and developing your own authentic personality. I've been around so many famous musicians and like having lunch or dinner with somebody out, and somebody runs up to them and they can barely breathe. They're barely in touch with their emotions, and they're like, their heart's pumping out their chest. And that's a beautiful thing, right? To be in awe of somebody. But it's like, I'm your biggest fan. It's like, talk about music. Like with Herbie Hancock, he enjoys talking about music. And so if you like had a conversation with him about one or two of your favorite tracks and asked him a question about writing it, like what mood were you in,
right,
when you wrote Dolphin Dance, or when you would, like Wayne Shorter, like tell me about your friendship and your relationship with Wayne Shorter. It's like you will get a meaningful conversation from Herbie Hancock. And it won't be just like a thing of him signing an autograph for you. It's like Herbie is quite serious about music. Marcellus, the same thing. They like talking about music. And if you talk to them about a track, something they wrote, it's a beautiful thing, because you'll get something meaningful from it, not just like, I'm your biggest fan and I love your music. Like, what tracks do you like? Ask me something intelligent that I can really like latch into you as well. And that exchange is more meaningful for it. But Silas, I wanted to come back a little to your question on, I think it's the pace for anything that you do. It's like the pace that you meet somebody with and kind of following it up and dropping a spark of something that's you, something that's authentically you. The great Miles Davis made a statement. He said, you got to play a long time to sound like yourself. And like that can apply to so many different kind of things, but ultimately it's about you developing something inside of you that's meaningful, that somebody else can kind of attach to and latch themselves inside of as well. And that's how relationships, kernels of wisdom exchange, that's how relationships are built and people get going from there.
Speaking of memorabilia, you've got a nice size ring on your finger right there, right?
Oh man, just that.
Just that.
Just that little thing.
Just that little thing there.
Yeah.
It's only 10 carats, baby.
Yeah, that's it. So you are a co-owner of the Washington Nationals, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is a big undertaking. And I heard a story about kind of how you got introduced to the idea. Your dentist told you there was an opportunity to be able to buy in. So tell us that story if you can.
So literally, Dr. Ronnie Rosenberg, I call him the world's most famous dentist, introduced me to Mark Lerner, Ed Cohen, and Bob Tannenbaum, the oldest brother of the Lerner family. And Ed and Bob are married to Debbie and Marla Lerner. So it's a very tight-knit family. And he did Lerner's teeth. So he, when So just by way of just background, a little bit of history, Major League Baseball took over the Montreal Expos in 2004. And they made the decision to, at first they were going to shrink the Expos and the Twins. The Twins ended up winning the pennant, and they left them alone. The city of Minneapolis built them a new stadium. So they needed balance on the teams in both leagues, 15 teams in both leagues. So they decided to move the Expos, and they shopped it to Portland, Oregon, Jacksonville, Sacramento, Las Vegas, Northern Virginia, and Washington, D.C. And then Mayor Tony Williams and the city council, I think Linda Kropp was city council chairman at the time, they said that they would put up a bond to build the stadium, but they wanted significant African-American ownership to be a part of the group, whatever group that was going to get the team. And Bud Selig, who was then commissioner, agreed to it. So he put the team up for sale at $450 million. He said, don't offer $455, don't offer $475, don't offer $500 million. That's not what this is. The team's going to sell for $450 million. Don't get involved in local politics. I'm going to make the decision. You put your group together. So there were 13 different groups that came out of the block. Quickly cut down to 8, and then it cut down to 4. And for the learner group, it was myself and James Brown, JB, who's from D.C.
Yeah.
And he was on Fox at the time. He's on CBS now for football. Yeah. And I knew JB from my BET days, and we had a good friendship there. And so we were the first African-American partners in the learner family. One of the other groups that was led by a guy named Stan Kasten, his group collapsed into ours. And that's when Doyle Mitchell from Industrial Bank, Jarvis Stewart, Rodney Slater, who was at Patton Boggs Law Firm, former transportation secretary in the Clinton, another brother named Al Malden, Raul Romero, sister named Faye Fields. They came in with our group, and we presented what we felt was a pretty compelling package, and we got the nod from the commissioner to be the group to get the bid to be a part of the team. When Ronnie first introduced me to Ed Cohen and Mark Lerner, meeting was supposed to be about 45 minutes. It lasted almost 3 hours. And when I walked out the door, I felt very confident that if the learners were fortunate enough to get the ownership of the team, that I would be a part of their group. Yeah. And that's how it worked out.
Wow.
What I found so, I think, intriguing about that is it's your dentist, right? and you've built relationships throughout your life in a professional setting. And some people let their hair down. They show up a different way when they're like being served versus serving people. And for him to still see you in that light, right? It just, I think, speaks to what I would imagine you being who you are 24/7, just always being in that position where someone sees you in a positive light to even throw you that sort of alley-oop.
Yeah. That's it. That's the gospel truth.
That's it. Right?
Yeah, literally. And that just kind of comes. If there's one theme I would say that's kind of interwoven throughout the whole of my life, and that's why I gave you the answer that I did on, like, not like, looking at something and say, oh, that's my shit. Mm-hmm. It's like, and it's dope. Like, you motherfuckers observe that. It's like, no, like, I'm a part of a team of people trying to accomplish something collectively.
Sure.
And we win collectively.
That's right.
And I'm thankful to be a part of that. And sometimes my role is a leader. Sometimes my role is support. And I'm comfortable in any setting in that regard. And I don't have to be the one that's out front. For my crew, everybody knows what my saying is, I'm not trying to be the only one that's successful. I'm not trying to be the only one with the relationships.
Yeah.
So I feel pretty strongly about that. And my life reflects that.
Yeah, that's amazing because, Silas and I think about our relationship and all the work that we've done collectively, and we really, feel that way, right? Like just how you just put that. That's how we look at life. Like, it ain't about either one of us or the other people that work with us and doing whatever it may be, right? And at any point, I don't have no problem supporting him, and vice versa. And it was a guy named Tyrone Parker. He established an organization called Alliance of Concerned Men. one day he said something to Silas and I thought we had a conflict, and I was like, damn, I can't. I'm here. I can't. I gotta go there. How do you put it aside? He was like, well, something like
as long as one of y'all there, both of y'all.
Yeah,
there.
well, as long as one of y'all there, both of y'all there.
Yeah.
And we sort of lived by that.
And there are plenty of times where I know there's certain areas where your voice projects further than mine, and I'll say, Tone, you got to say that.
Yeah,
Me saying it may not go far, but we can share those points, and he can be the projectile when I feel like maybe my voice doesn't go that far.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, just trying.
Beautiful thing.
Yeah, and I really appreciate the way you really just somebody of your stature and all the things that you've accomplished to that spoke to my spirit, to carry that and still be living in that energy and in that space. That's incredibly commendable.
Yeah, and I have always been hungry to achieve. And you mentioned the World Series ring. I have 3 championship rings. The Washington Kastles, I was a part of that group in 2015. Then we won the World Series in 2019. And the 2021 National Women's Soccer League champions, the Washington Spirit, I was part of that ownership group as well.
Oh, nice.
And last year, one of the other groups I'm a partner in is the Old Glory rugby team.
Yeah.
And we got to the Eastern Conference Finals, and we ended up losing to the Boston team, and we ended up losing to Boston, and they won the championship. So I came within 2 games of my 4th championship ring, and that's the one I'm looking for now. Is the next one? Next opportunity to win another championship. I love being a part of things, and like when you have a team run to be a part of a championship and know like what it can do for your city. Like winning the World Series, it was like Washington hadn't won a World Series since 1924 when they were the 1924 Senators.
Yeah.
Right.
In our lifetime, no one knew them to be champions.
Correct.
And in 1974, the team left for the final time. We hadn't even had baseball in D.C. since 74. So to win that was just such a meaningful thing for the city. Just brought us together.
Yeah. That was a beautiful time.
It was.
Beautiful day.
It was. Yeah,
I remember everything I did that day, ironically enough. And we went to Park. We watched the game at Park. That the energy. You know what it felt like? I don't want to overstate, but it was kind of close to Obama's first. It felt like it kind of felt that way. Honestly, man, it really did. In the streets, just people was just like electric. You know what I'm saying? When the Nets won, and that was 2019. Yep, 2019. That's crazy too, because that
right after that was COVID.
Yep.
Right, where the whole world changed.
Correct.
And so it's funny we get to that, right? Because one of the biggest questions I wanted to ask you was, having had so much experience in being rooted in production, knowing what you knew, right, before that time, and then COVID changing everything, how did you respond to COVID as a person who had been so knee deep in that sort of space?
Lived through it just like everybody else. I mean, it was nothing that anybody had any real clue to even begin to comprehend, to like figure out how we were going to get through it. And as more and more stuff shut down, like in my mind, everybody else's mind was like, how long is this going to last?
Correct.
Right. And it just seemed to have kept getting deeper. So then you start to read in history and see, like back in 1919, there was a big plague that came through that lasted for about 2 years.
It was the Spanish flu, right?
Yeah. And killed millions of people then. But the communication we have now is so much, deeper, because you can study history. It's like on your phone with Google, there's more information than we grew up. You can get more information in one day than people did in 2 or 3 years back in certainly 100 years ago. Even in the 60s, it was like maybe 40, 50 years of knowledge that you can get in one day on your telephone through Google or one of the other search engines. So it was pretty deep. And then from a selfish perspective, from the baseball, we wanted to really defend our championship, and all of that was kind of just literally taken away. We went from a really positive upside on winning the World Series. And the way sports works if for championship series, the more games you go, the more money is actually derived. So a 7-game championship series is what all of the major leagues hope for. NHL, MLB, NFL, NBA, they're all hoping for a 7-game championship series. When teams sweep, no one makes any money.
Right.
Literally, nobody makes any money. So we went 7 games. And the first series with the Dodgers, we went 5. So we beat the Brewers, the Dodgers, then we swept the Cardinals in 4. And we were happy just to win because the Cardinals are a great team. And then we went 7 games against the Astros. Yeah. And we did something that had never been done in the history of organized league sports. So counting hockey, basketball, and baseball, who all go 7-game series for the championships, no team in the history of any of those 3 sports had won every game on the road. Yeah. Last year's, ironically enough, so baseball is about 150 years old. No team in baseball history had won a championship on the road. We beat the first 2 games in Houston, came home, lost 3 games.
I remember that.
And then went back to Houston and won 2 games, right?
Yeah.
With nobody other than the most diehard ardent fans thinking we had a chance after they came into D.C. and just shelled us. Yeah. So we went back on the road to Houston, pulled off the victory. But literally, basketball is 75 years old. Hockey's about maybe 80 years old. Baseball is about 150 years old. No team in history had done that. Yeah. So Nationals literally rewrote history for baseball. Yeah. So, yeah, it was pretty incredible. And to, come down from that was a heartbreak. But you make the best with life and kind of come to peace with it. We clearly shifted, ended up making a lot of personnel moves, and now revamped for the future. We think that the team we have now is kind of has the capacity to get us back to a championship. And it reminds me a lot of the Nationals back in 2013, 2014, when we had Anthony Rendon and Ryan Zimmerman. All the talent was kind of homegrown, which is exactly what we got now, coming out of it, building it from the minor leagues, and we got some good emerging superstars now.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's good stuff. I think about, for the public, for people, and I don't say this with no disrespect, and I hope none is taken, but it ain't no way young black boys and girls in this city and around this country don't know you as a household name. You know what I'm saying? And Silas and I we talk a lot about all that you've accomplished, man. You know what I'm saying? What you do, what you continue to do. And I know that's what you just described. It ain't about you, and so I get that. But when we start talking about what's possible, when you sit and you just told that story, gave me chills about you watching Mr. Avon. You saw him, so you I want to be like that. You saw, and you continue to meet with him, and people, youngins need to know, man, it's a black dude, man, that's part of that ownership group of the Nets. They need to know that. They need to know that that can happen. You know what I mean? And it may, whatever the route to that is, but it can happen. And you don't have to be a former athlete to do it. That's why I'm really, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, but talk to us about your biggest challenge in entering the world of sports, not being a professional athlete, obviously being a black man, but what was the biggest challenge? Maybe what continues to be the biggest challenge for you in that regard?
So I love both of you guys' questions, by the way. Let me just pause and say that it's a good vibe of being challenged from intriguing things and people coming at it, your questions from different angles. So it's refreshing.
I appreciate it.
So, biggest challenges. I guess I don't know. That's a really good question. For me, it's continuing to be successful, I guess, building new, when you see something, putting together the thought or the group it is, to build it and to continue to achieve things, wondering, how long I can continue to achieve this or how long I can continue to do that. But my person in my office, Wanda Edmonds, who runs my office for me, she's been with me 30 years. my business partner, who's my accountant as well. We've been together 31 years. So the people who I work with are long-term relationships.
Sure.
And so that like they help you. It's like they know what you like, you know what they like. There's a camaraderie and a chemistry between you. Sports is interesting. I found for myself that when one door opened, another door opens and another door opens. So I'm a part of 6 different sport group ownership teams right now.
6.
6, yeah.
Nats, Kastles, Old Glory.
Kastles in the Spirit.
In the Spirit.
I sold my interest
Okay.
in both of those already. So
Okay.
now, so there's a new league that's launching in August called the Super League, which is a new women's soccer league. And DC's got a team called the DC Power. And Jason Levian, who's the principal owner of the DC United, also has the rights to that. So partnering with him on that. So the Spirit, Old Glory Rugby, the Cape Town Tigers basketball team in South Africa.
Okay.
The Brisbane Bullets, who Jason owns as well, in Brisbane, Australia. And another American football team in a league that used to be called NFL Europe, and now it's called the European League of American Football.
Okay.
The Barcelona Dragons football team, not soccer, but actual American football.
Right.
So those are the groups that I'm a partner in. And let's see, another league called Unrivaled, which launches January of 2025, which is going to be a 3-on-3 women's tournament and league with WNBA players in it during their off season. Another one called Sports Fishing Championship, and another indoor golf league, which is launching next year as well, with Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy as the principals in that. It's an indoor and virtual golf league, and that's launching next year as well. So
like a top golf-ish.
Yes. Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. So opportunities, I think success is something that's magnetic, and that one success leads to another success, to another success. And once those opportunities start to flow for you, at that point, it's actually easier because the energy is there, the magnetism is there, and you have confidence in yourself that you're aware of the value that you bring to things. And in the case with the Spirit, actually, Steve Baldwin, who was the owner, he's like, I met him at a University of Maryland football game, and that's where the relationship kind of began and started with. So a brother named Ibrahim Sanya, who's the principal owner of the Cape Town Tigers, one of his boys who I met at the NBA All-Star Weekend introduced me to him. So I think that success, I call it a magnet, and that magnets, the bigger and stronger they become, the more stuff is pulled into it by that magnet. And I believe success is that success is a big, huge magnet. And the more successful you are, the more opportunities come to you. Something else comes to you, something else comes to you, something else comes to you. And if your energy is good, then it's going to flow right back out. Yeah. And that's what I think about relationships as well.
What about your discernment, though? Like, when these things start to come to you?
That's what I was getting at. So, real quick, I think I'm going to ask the same question, right? A story and then a 2-part question. I remember hearing Jimmy Iovine talk about when he first met Dr. Dre, and he heard Nothing But a G Thing for the first time. And he said when he heard Nothing But a G Thing for the first time, it reminded him of Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones, right? And every time I hear that story, I wonder if he had not made that connection, would he have stood in the way of us seeing Dr. Dre as a solo artist, right? So my questions are, based on that quick story, being a veteran investor at this point, do you ever see yourself jaded by your past experiences that might prevent you from seeing a new investment? And then secondly, have you ever felt like people have maybe not, I guess, estimated you correctly on your value, and they may have been jaded by their previous experiences? Mm-hmm. So a double-edged sword, like being jaded on both ends.
Well, it started with discernment.
Yep.
So I'm gonna start with that one. I think that's something that comes to you as time. Once you have started to do a certain amount of deals, you have a good sense of something, that it's like a internal kind of clock or an internal feeling that you have. And for mine, I generally don't do a lot of things that I don't understand. And I'm okay with being simple or really fundamental on different things. And I don't kick myself for things that I don't really have. Like, if something seems too complicated to me, I'm probably not going to do it. If it's too complicated for me, I got to get my arms around. So sports, I understand really well. Media, I understand really well. Entertainment, I understand really well. So when I left BET, that was part of my goal and my challenge for myself, was to grow outside of Black entertainment and to really kind of discover the big whole world. Because I had a 26, 27-year career. 11 years as a consultant with them, and then 16 as an executive. So it was a long career. So it's two parts. One was the discernment, and I think that you learn enough that you can see something coming down the road if it's not right for you. And sometimes things are right for other people, but they're not necessarily right for you. And so to me, you should have a comfort level with yourself to kind of be okay with that. And I'm not trying to be with everything. It was an old saying back in the 80s in D.C., everybody can't be with everything, right?
You.
So it's like, right?
100%.
Everybody can't be with everything,
Yeah.
right? So there's that. And then I'm being underestimated, countless times, underestimated. And actually, I like that. I like kind of when somebody underestimates me or doesn't necessarily think I may have the chops to pull off something, because that just makes it more of a challenge to me. Yeah. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Very much okay. Okay, if I take my jacket off?
Man, come on.
Hot.
Of course,
Okay.
of course, man. I'm thinking, right, that's a nice jacket, by the way.
Thank you, brother.
So I know we kind of got into the sports ownership stuff, right? You just talked 11 years as a consultant with BET, 16 as an exec there. And I'm sure, right, and it's a broad question. I hate asking broad questions, but I'm going to ask this broad question. Can you tell us your top two things that in terms of production, or you could be even on the consultant side or the executive side, that you were a part of at BET, that you're the most proud of? Two things that you're the most proud of in your tenure.
So
BET.
Can I give you three?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Absolutely. Please.
So I produced the Soul Train Awards from 2009 to 2014. That would be right at the top, because I got a chance to work with so many great artists. Was that. And then in 2012, I produced United Nations Day on the floor of the General Assembly in New York with Stevie Wonder. Okay. And it was like he and I were co-executive producers. And so that was literally your greatest childhood idol for me. Was the group Earth, Wind & Fire. It was Muhammad Ali, and it was Stevie Wonder. Wow. And so to be able to work with Stevie, and I had literally... when iTunes first came out, they put up Stevie's whole catalog, which was 584 songs, and I bought it. And I just remember thinking how incredible it was to be able to get like the B tracks that didn't get released, the offtakes, his whole music catalog, everything in the Stevie Wonder catalog. So when my first conversation with Stevie, the call lasted almost 3.5 hours. I had to go take my phone and put the cord out the wall on it, because the phone was on run out of power.
Right.
And it was literally one of those most incredible conversations, almost like I've waited my whole life for this one conversation, and now I'm actually having it. So that would be that. And then, do you remember, you guys remember the name Miriam Anderson?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she did that concert in, I think it was in the 40s.
Yeah,
on the
Memorial.
Mall, right?
Yeah.
It was originally supposed to be at Constitution Hall. And then it got moved because Eleanor Roosevelt got the Secretary of the Interior to approve this concert to happen on the Mall. And it was the first time an African-American person, right, was able to sing outside like that. And it was one of the largest, at the time, was the largest concert in American history. I produced the 75th reunion of it at Constitution Hall, where the original show was supposed to be. And we had Wolf Blitzer, MC Hammer, B.B. Winans and the Winans Brothers. Was it Leontine Price? We had some opera divas, and then it was a 450 person choir. We had about 100 people on stage, with about 100 on one side, 150 on the other, and it was incredible. Like all the different choirs in DC that came together for this thing, and it was just an amazing culmination of great music and a great concept. The Congressional Black Caucus was there, and it was just one of those great performances. And then I've produced, been a part of multiple productions at the White House. That's like always extremely special. Sure. Touring George Duke, Stanley Clarke, Earl Klugh, Al Jarreau throughout India, and we performed at the Gateway of India, which is the equivalent of their Washington Memorial, Washington Monument.
Right.
I produced shows at the Washington Monument as well, so I've had a lot of them. And I've just really been blessed with like just great productions that like every year Soul Train was a gem. And like working with your childhood, working with Dionne Warwick, working with the Isley Brothers, working with Eddie Levert from the OJs, and Shaka, Anita Baker, Charlie Wilson, just black music, great black music, ancient to the future. So, and then all the jazz concerts I've done as well that I've produced literally throughout the whole of the world. At one point, our production company was producing anywhere between 6 to 10 music festivals around the world. And then I produced the TV show Caribbean Rhythms as well, and ended up marrying the host for it, Rachel. We have 3 children, and being a father is one of the greatest like joys of my life.
For sure.
Yeah.
Do they even understand like what the magnitude of the work you've done?
That's a good question. Yeah, maybe we'll get them in here one day. You guys ask.
Yeah, how about that, man?
Yeah.
You also had one of the companies that you own was responsible for marketing Black Panther as well, right?
Yes. It's called Liquid Soul Media out of Atlanta. And yes, Black Panther. At one point, Liquid Soul probably touched about 80% of the black films or black targeted films in the U.S. over about a 15, 16, 17-year period of time. So I'm a partner in Liquid Soul Atlanta, and then I opened a Washington, D.C. office. Brother's name is Tyrell Whitley, good brother out of Atlanta. Was an engineer by training, loved music, and started Liquid Soul up back about 22 years ago. And now it's become one of the more marketing media agencies in the United States.
Yeah, wow. And, I think about... particularly as I guess not just Atlanta, but the whole state of Georgia has also become such a hub for films and things in TV production. Has that increased like the work with that venture, is that I see it's like so much is shot in Georgia. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's when I was in Atlanta, like late last year for 85 South. And we would talk, it was really letting me know just how much, is being shot. And just I had no idea. Like, it's like the new Hollywood. And not just for black films, but just...
Films, period.
Yeah, films, period. Yeah.
Yeah, Viacom and Paramount, like, they do like 25 to 40% of their films on a given year. Loads of big production companies. Everybody pretty much has a place there now.
Yeah.
And Tyler Perry's is the king of it.
Yeah.
It's like... massive complex that he is. So really proud to see a brother achieving that kind of
that's pretty incredible.
That kind of juice.
It's no question.
Yeah.
You gotta go see him look like you gotta go through there. If you shooting something, I saw something, I think that's a 60-minute special or something I was just like, what in the world? Like, it's crazy.
You talked about achievement. This is a personal question. I'm gonna take the personal privilege to ask it, right? So I walked into 2024 being a member of 2 boards, right? Now there's a potential for me to be a part of 2 additional boards. So it'll be 4 boards for me potentially by the end of this year. And I've been thinking a lot, talking to my wife a lot about allotting the time to be able to contribute to each of those efforts. And you're on countless boards, right? You're in countless partnerships. How do you handle the ecosystem of all the things that you're a part of?
I would come back to a good team of people around me. I would absolutely positively come back to a good team of people around me. And I literally, that's a big part of it, is like having a mastermind team of people who you trust, who have everybody's best interest at heart, and who can achieve things together. one of the other projects that, two other things I would throw out. One is I've been chairman of Congress's official charity since 2007. It's called the U.S. Congressional Award, and it's Congress's charity for young people, and they earn a congressional medal. It's 100 hours for bronze, 200 for silver, and 400 hours for gold. And then there's different areas of, so there's personal development, goal setting, civic volunteerism, outward bound travel, and physical fitness are the elements of earning a congressional medal. When I started with the program, we had about 20,000 young people in the program, and now we have over 65,000 young people in the program nationwide. Mm-hmm. So that's been done through a good board of people who we work with and who bring their resources to the table with the goal of making America a better place through helping young people, right? And then the other part is one of my other things that I have a lot of joy with right now. We're in the process of developing is a project called Africa Cup. And we launched it last year. It was the 14th of October, but the week leading into it's a free cultural arts festival. This year it's the 7th to the 12th of October. It's a free cultural arts festival highlighting African culture. And then on Saturday, this year it'd be Saturday the 12th, October 12th, it's a soccer game. And it's between the winner of Ghana's Premier League Championship and DC United. Mm. So for me, it was like everybody in Washington, everybody in the Northeast, probably never going to go to Africa. Everybody won't go, but a lot of people can. So why don't we do something to try to bring African culture here to give people a taste of African culture with the idea that they might want to go to Africa if you get a chance to kind of like come down, sample the food, hear the music, sample the culture, see the art, and then see that they have sports over there just like we do with competitive products. Maybe you'll be motivated to go to Ghana. And so we partnered with the government of Ghana last year, and we're partnering with them this year as well with the Africa Cup game. So it's a you stumped me for a minute, Tony, on the question of challenges, because like life presents them to you every day, and I'm not sure if there's any like one one massive big challenge, but I'm always challenging myself on different things just to see if I can achieve things. And I like to feel pretty confident that once you kind of, as I mentioned, like the magnetism part, once you kind of build up a certain amount of successes, it becomes easier to continue to succeed and continue to grow.
Yeah, I mean, it's all right for you to be like, I don't even see that. I don't see that shit. It's all right. It's all right. Because I be feeling like that some days. I mean, I think it's beautiful, though, man. Like, honestly, I'm sitting here and I'm like, dang, I don't be easily impressed. I don't be impressed by a lot of people, for real. And I appreciate your humility. But at the same time, obviously, all that you've done, and like my good friend of ours, and I know he gonna kill me if I don't say this, because honestly, he the first person to mention you to me even before Trey was my man Silas Boosie Vegas. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, yes, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
He mentioned you a couple of times to us. Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
And you know, and I mean, even maybe say like 2-3 years ago when I first went over there and did the interview with his amazing program.
Deanwood, right.
Man, what they doing over that journalism class, and you know, as I know you have been interviewed countless times by a lot of different people, blah blah. When I sat over there, I did it twice. One by myself, and then when my dad came home, we went over to just what he's doing over there with those young people.
Incredible.
Oh my God! But he always talks about you in such high regard. And what you've done to support the program, you know, and you know, his young people getting, you know, certain exposures when you're talking about the congressional award, yeah, and so thank you for that, for you know, supporting those young people. But shout out to Boosie, that's our guy.
Shout out to Boosie,
yeah, man, that's a good man.
Love him.
So can we talk a bit more about, you know, you as a philanthropist, though, right? And how do you decide? What, you know, you and I talked about the Nats, Washington National Philanthropies and the stuff that's happening coming out of the academy over on Eli and Ward 7, and of course the other work that they're doing at whether it's Trinidad Rec or Furby Hope, soon to be Upshur Rec, I think, and at Greenleaf. But how do you decide what you gonna you know, support? Whether it's on a board level, volunteer level, or, you know, your checkbook level, how do you just decide what things are important to you in that way?
Good question again. Love the questions tonight. Love the questions. So I guess I try to be spread across an array of different things. I certainly do for investments on spreading it an array of different things that kind of make sense to me. But boards for me have been everything from like people who ask you, Mark Ian, who own the Kastles, and Mark owns the City Open, and he also is the third highest partner in the deal and in the partnership for the Washington Commanders. Mark asked me to be on the board for DC Public Education Fund. A guy named Chris Spear, who's CEO of the American Trucking Association, asked me to be on their board.
Is City Open? That's the tennis.
Yes.
That used to be Legg Mason, right? That's the one that's up the Carter.
Carter Barron.
Okay,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, just one.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, City. That is right. And so for me, part of it is a brother named Reggie Van Lee asked me to be on WAMU's board. So it's like who asked you is important to me, is who's the person that asked you, and then where you think you can contribute the most. Like where do you think you actually have some things that you can bring to the table to contribute? That's important as well. And on the checkbook part, it's to me the mission of the organization and the people who are running it. Those would be the people who I would like participate with and kind of work with. So it's part of it is just gut instinct and feeling. Other parts of it are things that make sense for you, and then the other part would be where you think you can make a really quality difference.
Yeah. Did any, like your upbringing, right? We didn't touch on that yet. I don't even know how much time we have, but I do want to ask, like your childhood. Does your childhood have any impact on, in terms of selecting organizations or causes, to be like, man, when I was growing up, I wish I had this, or I wish I had that. Does that have any influence on how you move in that space?
Maybe not so much the organization, but certainly your input with different things. So my mother preached volunteerism. My mother preached going the extra mile, doing more than you got paid to do. Like those are things that were fundamentals that my mother taught me. And my father, I saw him hustle hard as well, but my mother was the greater influence on my life. And so that is a part of my life every day, like the lessons and things that she taught me. And certainly volunteerism is just an integral part of something that she taught me. And then when I was 17, I was given a book. I was a knucklehead. I dropped out of high school 3 times, ended up talking my way into junior college, and went to community college. It took me 2.5 years to get an associate's degree. When I was 17, at the second time I dropped out of high school, there was a guy who gave me a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And Think and Grow Rich changed my life. It taught me goal setting. It taught me perseverance. And it's interesting, my favorite band of all time is Earth, Wind & Fire. And when I read Maurice White's book, he said that was one of the motivating influences in his life. And I was like, I recognized it. And then Damon John, who's one of my friends, Damon, that's where we met. It was like there's a kinship, I think, with people who've read that book. You can almost feel that spirit in other people. Right. And when I met him, it was literally like when you meet some people, you just have a real kinship with somebody. It almost feels like you already met that person before, and the vibe is already there. You really don't even have to talk a lot sometimes because you just catch a vibe with that person and you know it's real and authentic. Sure. That's how I feel with some people. And ironically enough, at some point I get through it and they've read that book. So it talks about the great principles of wealth, of a positive mental attitude, sound physical health, harmony in human relationships, freedom from fear, labor of love, self-discipline. And financial security is actually the last of the whole things of wealth, but like relationships are one of the top pieces that he taught and espoused were actually a part of really what wealth really is. And so that has been imbued in my life from a teenager, and it's integral, once again, to who I am as a human being.
Sure enough.
So, yeah.
Appreciate that.
Paxton, we appreciate you for coming on with us. We really do. And I hope that the people got a quarter of what you and I got home from this conversation. It was filled with a lot of wisdom and a lot for me to think about personally just going to the next level. You talked about celebrating your birthday recently. I've got one coming up in like 2 weeks. So when you're in this sort of reflective mode as you go into a new year, it's good to have this kind of conversation to kind of jolt you.
No, for sure. This was a gift.
Yeah, definitely. We appreciate you for being here.
Thank you, beloved. Thank you, beloved. Appreciate both of you as brothers. And I'll do, Tony, as well, a shout out to Bootsy. Salih, Bootsy Vegas, who to me is one of the great citizens of the city of Washington, D.C.
Yes,
as upstanding as possibly as it comes. And that brother has made the difference in the lives of so many young people in Washington, D.C.
Yes, indeed.
And that to me is true greatness. Dr. King taught what he called it servant leadership. And that's always been a great inspiration to me. And I mentioned, I've talked a lot about Harry Belafonte, who was, although he was older than Dr. King, always told me they learned so much from it. And by the way, about 3 weeks ago, Martin Luther King III was, I met him and somebody brought him out to Nationals Park and we just had a wonderful evening. And that brother's spirit, man, he's like, you could tell he's his father's son. Mm-hmm. It was just such a warm and wonderful thing to be around him. I don't know, like we meet, thousands of people in our lifetime, but it's like rare to like run across those like this really unique spirits that when you meet that person, you really truly feel something that's warm inside, that's different than other people that you run into. I got that from him, and it was just a beautiful thing. So thank you, brothers, for sparing me some of your time and allowing me to sit on your couch. I dug the couch. I'm like, I'll get a chance to come and sit on the couch today. So I'm thankful for it. And your engineer, your tech over there, he's been a part of it, although he's got an Orioles hat on. We won't hold that against him today.
I should have prepped him before and said we got one of Nats on that's coming in.
Well, if you guys ever have me back, I'll bring some Nats gear. How about that?
All right, that's it. That works. We can do that. We can do that.
Yeah, bring me back. I'll bring some Nats gear over. And then I want to extend an invite to your whole crew, actually. We can pick a night and you guys come down and be my guest at the stadium.
Okay.
I love that, man.
So, literally all three of you guys come down and we'll have dinner there at the park, sit behind home plate, catch some baseball. And catch a nice vibe with each other. So
let's do it.
That's a promise from my end. Hold me to it. Hold me to it.
Don't worry about it. Yeah, don't worry about that.
All three of you guys come down and catch a vibe with us at the park. It's been a good year. So we hope to continue to make it better. So thankful, very thankful, humble and appreciative to be here with you guys this evening.
Indeed. For the viewers, man, we try to bring this to you every week. Good conversation. Please tell a friend to tell a friend. Like the channel, subscribe to it, leave a comment. Let us know what you think about the conversation. And until next time, we'll see you.
Heart of the city.
Heart of the city.